So let's get into managing the organization. I've got the users all set up. Let's dive into ingressing calls into my organization. And I think for all of us that are experienced telecom execs, maybe an auto attendant. I mean, that's, if I'm fielding calls initially for my company, thank you for calling G12 Communications, the leader in cloud communications. So there you go. I put on my auto attendant voice for you and everything. Let's kick that off, gentlemen.
So back in the Teams administration portal here, we've got ourselves in the voice section here, and down under voice we've got auto attendants. And so right now we have none. We're brand new to this, so we're going to go ahead and create our first, and we'll see how far we can get through this. So, Rick, you said this is G12 Communications mainline, and we are going to indicate an operator as a person in the organization, and we'll put Brittany Bowen in there. So we'll indicate the time zone here. We're Pacific time zone, and we'll leave English as the language. We have a choice here for enabling voice inputs or not. And so this is the difference between pushing 1 through 9 and pound to activate your way through the auto attendant, or enabling the voice portion of the auto attendant so that you can speak to it.
In your experience, how effective is that?
I've been doing these for some time. I'm personally not a fan of the voice inputs, but I know that there are a lot of organizations that are. So typically I will either look to what has already been done previously, or talk to the receptionist and figure out what their user base is like. And so it's typically who are the people dialing into this, and how do they want to interact with this auto attendant.
Perfect. One more question for you on the English language right there. Is there other options for language? So when I'm an organization that requires both English and Spanish, look at that. So you can choose the language there that you're going to have for the auto attendant.
Yes. And so if you wanted to provide multiple languages, the same kind of auto attendant with multiple languages, there are structural ways that you could build this to basically offer the same auto attendant twice into 2 different languages.
Got it.
So you would effectively build one for English, one for Spanish or French, whatever language you want to choose. So we're going to turn this on. All right, so the call flow. This says you will need to record or type the welcome greeting for callers to hear, and then after the greeting is played, decide on where you want the calls to be sent. These greetings here will be available during business hours, but you can change the greeting and where the calls are sent after hours in the advanced settings. So if you're familiar with call flows, basically this is telling you create a greeting, and you can either type it in and have the AI or the robot read it off. They do actually a surprisingly good job with that. Or you can record an audio file yourself, and you can upload it that way. That one's a little bit more complicated, but there's some instructions out on docs.microsoft.com that will help make sure that you get the right audio file type and the right kind of compression and all of the different things that they require as you're ingesting those audio files into their system. For this instance, we're just going to type in a greeting message. We're going to say, welcome to G12. Actually, I should ask you, Rick, what do you want to say? Welcome to G12 Communications, right?
The leader in IP telephony.
You'll see if you play around with this, the robot voice does a pretty good job. Words like telephony, you may have to do some phonetic spelling to get it to pronounce the word the way that you want it to.
Right.
All right, so we've got our message, and we're going to then route the call. So the first option here, disconnect. This is, we're going to essentially play a message and then hang up the phone. There's some instances where that's essentially what you want to do. Maybe there's an emergency number or an emergency dial-in number. My kid's school does this, where you can dial in and understand whether or not school is in session that day. That's one instance where you could create a message and then have the call drop immediately after that. Usually it's a little bit jarring, so most of the time there's other options there, like for instance, redirect the call. So in this case, we can redirect the call to a person in the organization, to a voice app. So a voice app is going to be a resource account tied to either another auto attendant or a call queue. And so we can get kind of deeper levels or structurally deeper levels into our call tree by linking auto attendants together. Sometimes this is a good example where we see maybe you call into a main number and you want to have that essentially direct to branch sites or departments or that type of thing. We can use that to essentially link to other auto attendants, or in this case, call queues, or kind of the old school hunt group. They used to call it a hunt group. Now it's a call queue. Or to an external phone number if we want to send that back out of the system, and then to a voicemail if we want to land that in maybe the receptionist voicemail box, so he or she can go and check that. And so what we're going to do here, after we've created the greeting message here, and after that we're going to have the auto attendant play menu options. And so again, here we can either create an audio file and upload it into the system here and play somebody in the organization's voice, recording whatever message they want to record. There are specifics around that. Again, this tells you audio format MP3, WAV, WMA. File must be less than 5 megabytes. A good application that we always use for that is Audacity. So it's a free application. Record the audio file there.
Yep.
Or you can type in the greeting message here. Again, we've already got one at the top level, but here we can do things like press 1 to reach Rick's personal cell phone. Image support.
So that top level was an intro greeting essentially. So it is, the welcome to G12 Communications, the leader in direct routing. So that's your intro. Now we're moving into a separate section here where we're actually going to guide the call into some options here, right? Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. Yeah. So this menu options, again, we're kind of we're putting in this message. We don't have to do this. If we do neither, this should read off the menu options for us here as well. So let's see. We've got our greeting message in here. Now we can go down and set the menu options. Essentially, I've just pushed the plus sign next to assign a dial key. So we're going to set the option to 1, and we're going to route this to a person in the organization. And so we don't have Rick in the organization yet, but we can.
What I would think here is if we're going to send it to my cell phone, let's just say we're playing along with this message here. It's that external number that that is an option essentially. So if you're going external number, then you could just type in my phone number there.
Yeah. So we'll type in Rick's phone number here, 106.
I'm not even going to repeat what mine is.
There we go. That's definitely your phone number, right?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so we've got our first key in there. So we'll add the second one, 2 to reach customer support. And we don't have this call queue set up, so we may have to go back and do this later. But if we wanted to send this to a hunt group or a call queue, we would select send to a voice app here. And then we would indicate the resource account that we want to tie this to. And so we would tie a resource account to our call queue. And that resource account is essentially listening for incoming calls from the system. And so when it dials the number associated to that resource account, it's going to activate that call queue and bring the users that are indicated in that call queue.
So right now, since there's no resource set up and you just put person in the organization, you can get right to a person in the organization. You can send it to, it looks like an announcement of some sort. Lots of different options when you're in that in that auto attendant there.
Exactly. So we'll set this to Brittany for now, and then we'll go create a call queue, and we'll circle back and we'll change this back.
And if you're wanting to use the voice commands, the box in there for voice command is where you would type what you want them to say. So if your intro says press or say 1 to reach Rick's personal cell phone, the voice command, you would type out the word 1.
Huh. Okay. So is this where you called your local bank or your big bank or something like that? And you're like representative. Representative.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because I typically shout that at the automated attendant when I'm calling my bank. Representative.
Yep. So you've touched on why I don't personally like the voice commands.
Is there an option to do multiple? So right there you got customer support. Is there an apostrophe that you can throw in there and or a colon or something that you can throw in there and go support or customer service or anything like that? for multiple voice options?
It's gonna, in my experience, it's gonna pick up pretty well on what you're trying to give it commands for. And so you may end up having to play around with this. It's going to vary depending on the words that you're choosing and how well they're spoken, that type of thing. But how similar they are to other options. So again, in my experience, the command system is actually fairly good. The robot voice that the system uses to create greetings is also pretty good, surprisingly good, actually.
So then let me go back to this intro greeting where I'm going press one, or not the intro greeting, where I'm going press one. Now, is it Microsoft that inserts press or say one, or is that something that you need to type in there, press or say one, or press or press two, or say customer service? I mean, do you tell people to, in that message, to say it if that's an option?
Yeah. So in this case, we do want to say something like press one to reach your cell phone or speak the command. It gets a little complex when you're adding both there.
Yeah, typically I will just type in literally press or say one to reach Rick's personal cell phone, press or say two to reach customer support. And then in the voice command, I spell out the word one and I spell out the word two. That's typically how I will simplify it.
Directory search.
So this last piece down here, this is effectively a built-in feature. Back in the old days when we were doing these in Exchange, this was something that we would map to a key, and it's one of the changes that has become interesting when you're moving from Exchange auto attendants to Microsoft Teams auto attendants. Is it's no longer tied to necessarily a configurable button. So we do have the options built in. We can turn it off for this auto attendant, or we can turn on dial by name or dial by extension. Without extensions configured, obviously the dial by extension wouldn't work. So we would need to make sure that our Teams users or other auto attendants call queues were actually configured with extensions on their line yard. So typically dial by name is going to be the most obvious choice. But again, it's there. The options are there if you need them. All right, so we're going to submit on this and we'll see where we get, if it likes all of our settings. It's not the world's greatest auto attendant configuration there, but I think it serves our purpose for the best. So a couple other things here, the holiday call settings, you'll see there was no actual setting in there for us to go and configure that. Essentially, globally, you're going to configure and identify holidays for your organization. And so you'll input those globally, and then you can basically tell your auto attendants and your call queues to respect holidays and what to do with maybe alternate routing or alternate call flows for holidays or for off days.
Does that essentially set timers as an example? So when you identify holidays, is it asking for here, on this particular day, or does it know the holidays, or you're typing in July 4th as an example, and on July 4th at midnight this kicks in, or?
Yeah, so you're going to go in and configure the holidays that you want your team's environment to respect. So you're going to say Christmas is this day, between this time and this time, right? Thanksgiving is going to be this day, this time, this time. So that's going to be configured globally. And then as you go into different auto attendants, so you would click in here again, we can go over on the left side here. So what we did essentially in the beginning was configure the general info. We configured the call flow, do call flow after hours and holiday. And so call flow after hours, you can see here, essentially we're setting Sunday through Saturday. We're going to tell the system what on hours are and off hours are. And if it's relevant to the auto attendant, we can have it respect those hours, the call flow level. So at the auto attendant or the call queue. So if we want a live receptionist to be ring during business hours, we can set the call, send calls to the receptionist, and then maybe during his lunch or her lunch, maybe after hours, we're going to send it to a voicemail box or something like that. That's very typical. Again, the top level greeting, and then how to make the call. And then setting up call flows during holidays, it's the same general concept. We have kind of an indication of what the holidays are, and we can go through and create different call flows for that.
That's certainly a great introduction to ingressing calls into the organization, routing calls to an auto attendant, and then ultimately to a user or an external number we showed. We'll wrap up today, and that building an auto attendant, building the holiday timeframes or the holiday hours or holiday days into your organization gives you the initial build requirements into taking calls into your organization. We're going to come back and we'll address the resource allocation for the number to point to that auto attendant. But right now, you've got the basics of building an auto attendant for your organization, both with voice activation or just by pressing DTMF keys, which is to say you're pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So you've got those options there, and all the different routing options within Teams. It looks robust, so that's exciting to see. Stay tuned. We're going to run you through tomorrow. We're going to come back and we're going to show you call queues and some other awesome configuration opportunities within Microsoft Teams, or some other opportunities within Microsoft Teams. So thanks so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.